Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Time Traveler's Handbook. Today we are going to be continuing our discussion on the Map of Tiny Perfect Things. Spoilers ahead. The Map of Tiny Perfect Things does something very clever with its storytelling, in telling the story from the perspective of Mark for the majority of the movie. It's revealed late in the film that the loop was never really about him, but it was always about Margaret and her internal struggles to move on from that day. We talked previously about how she lost her mother this day, and she didn't want to carry forward. So for most of the movie, we're experiencing the day repeating from the perspective of someone who has no reason to have been in the loop in the first place. Well, for the most part, until he falls in love with Margaret and they escape the loop together. It's an interesting look at things when you consider that the protagonist doesn't necessarily have a good method to get out of the loop. It's entirely possible that the main looping person finds a way to escape the loop without ever interacting with the protagonist, in which case they wouldn't be able to easily find a way to break out of the loop. And then in cases like this, where the loop is highly dependent on a personal family situation, it's not going to make sense to our protagonist why the way out of the loop was the way out of the loop after all. I think if you have a case like this where one person caused the loop and the other person is just more along for the ride, it's because the universe has already necessarily determined the outcome of the loop has to be related to these two people. It's seemingly random that Mark is involved in the loop at all, especially because he doesn't know Margaret at all before any of this begins, and not until much later into the loop. Like I said before, if Mark and Margaret never met, the loop would have seemed entirely pointless, and they both would have never known how to escape. I like the idea of the universe constructing the time loop in such a way that it has the end in mind. It's sort of a backwards way of looking at consequences, where the ends justify the means, and no matter how things happen in the loop, the way to break out always has a specific solution. I could see this being the pastime of an omnipotent being, where they want a certain outcome to occur, so they form a loop where the only way to break out is for that outcome to occur. It would then be even more interesting if the characters figured a way to break out of the loop together without satisfying the loop creator's intentions. This is going off the beat of the movie quite a bit, so bear with me. But imagine a scenario where someone has trapped you in a loop and wants a certain outcome that would mean the death of a loved one or unlocking a secret that only you know, but you find a way to break out of the loop a different way by going around the structure of the universe itself. Just food for thought. Anyways, back to the movie. I think that the movie pulls off this idea that the story was never really about Mark, but about Margaret, and that switch in the middle of the movie is satisfying and uses time loop elements pretty uniquely, and I think that's a real strong point of the film. That concludes this episode. Next time we're going to be talking about a particular scene that I found to be interesting from my perspective, and something that kind of subverted my expectations of what was going to happen in this film. As always, thank you for listening.